Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Chrissy Butis. I am the Chief Government Affairs Officer at the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. I am so thrilled that you have joined us here today for our next our webinar entitled Hiring People with Disabilities, What Employers Need to Know. Just as a way of background, back several months ago, many various stakeholders got together from both business as well as from government and from our disability community to join forces and compare opportunities and challenges to figure out solutions on to hire folks with disabilities. And we are thrilled today to be joined by so many various stakeholders for our second webinar. This webinar actually builds off our previous one where we provided an overview of the benefits of hiring folks that have disabilities and how supportive they are in the workspace. And so we are joined here by representatives from the state as well as from the disability community and our employer community to really talk about the ins and outs of the hiring process. And I'm thrilled that everyone's here joining us this afternoon. I trust it will be a very informative conversation. There will be more follow-up to come, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the work of all of our various stakeholders in making today possible. So please bear with me for just a moment as I read our participating organizations. Access New Jersey, Alliance for the Betterment of Citizens with Disabilities, ASAH, Chamber of Commerce of Southern New Jersey, Commerce and Industry Association of New Jersey, Community Access Unlimited, Community Options, Easter Seals, New Jersey, Jewish Vocational Services of Metro West, New Jersey Association of Community Providers, New Jersey Business and Industry Association, New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities, New Jersey Department of Human Services, New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the Princeton Mercer Regional Chamber of Commerce, Senate President Steve Sweeney, the ARC of New Jersey, and the Boggs Center on Developmental Disabilities. And a special thank you to my colleague from NJBIA, Danielle Wink, for coordinating today's webinar. She does a wonderful job. Again, I would be remiss if I didn't thank all of our partners in putting today's webinar together. We hope to continue the conversation and the educational efforts moving forward and to answer any questions from the employer community as they may arise. And so I trust today you're going to find a very informative panel that's really going to go through the support services available to the employer community. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Tom Bafuto from the ARC of New Jersey, who is going to moderate today's conversation. So Tom, I'm going to turn the program over to you. And once again, thank you to everyone who made today possible. And thank you for all of those who joined. Yes, this webinar will be available for reviewing after this afternoon. And have a great weekend, everyone. So Tom, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Chrissy, and thanks to NJBIA and Senator Sweeney for your dedication and your support to making employment for people with disabilities a reality. As Chrissy said, I'm Tom Bafuto, Executive Director of the ARC of New Jersey. We're a statewide advocacy and service organization for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities with chapters in every county of the state. I am delighted to have you join us today. This is, as Chrissy said, our second webinar on employment for people with disabilities. We had a great first webinar on why it's good business to hire people with disabilities. And this webinar is focused on hands-on strategies to hire people with disabilities, get them on board, and continue their employment with our employers in New Jersey. So I believe we all share the vision that a diversified workforce benefits everyone, and people with disabilities want and need to be part of this workforce in New Jersey. So let's get right into our presentation. We're delighted to have Wesley Anderson, Director of Training and Consultative Services, to lead us off this afternoon. Wesley is with the ARC of New Jersey. He's got over 10 years experience in the field. And Wes is going to provide you with tips on recruiting people with disabilities and onboarding them. Wes, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning or afternoon, everybody. As Tom said, my name is Wesley Anderson. I am the Director of Training and Consultation for the ARC of New Jersey. Basically, my job for the past 5 years in this role has been helping providers connect to employers and bridge the gap between what employers need to enhance their workforce and the vast pool of talent that is available in our communities. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right into our first segment, which is going to be how to hire and onboard, how to recruit and hire individuals with disabilities. So, as a broad category, we have a couple of topics that we're going to touch on briefly. Of course, there are so much information available. I hope to give some actionable tools and tips, but I welcome any questions during the end segment. So, in this first part, we're going to talk about ways to find talent and source talent and ways to enhance your onboarding strategies. So, let's start with some three quick tips. I always like to start off with some quick tips so that you know you got something. The first tip will be to avoid making decisions about inferences about the person's ability to be comfortable on job, their ability to fit in with your culture. Avoid making those snap judgments because oftentimes an individual's ability is based not just on their own experiences, but their support systems. And as Margaret Gilbride excellently displayed in the previous webinar, the business case for hiring individuals with disabilities goes far beyond pure productivity. So, one tip, inclusive job descriptions, which we'll touch on a little bit more in a second, but you want to try to ensure that your job descriptions are thoroughly curated on a regular basis. You want to remove any requirements or restrictions that don't actually connect to the main requirements of the position, and some that are more restrictive than they need to be, including in their wording. Make sure that your online applications are accessible, not just for screen readers, but also ensure that your online applications have a clear directive to where people can go if they need assistance or accommodations to complete them. This means that you need to designate a person, a physical person, that they will be able to contact if there is an issue. And that first one was delaying judgment. So these are some areas that, when it comes to accessibility, you want to be taking a look at.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Are you sharing your screen that's in the background of where you are?
I should be spotlighting, so let me just see if we can you see it now?
No. I mean, if the rest of the folks are able to see it, that's fine, but I'm not.
Okay.
I can see it now.
Okay, great. I'm
I
sure
don't
that
know
this is-
how much of the screen is supposed to be visible. I see three illustrations. A clock is the last thing I see. So I don't know what else is to be seen.
Okay, let's adapt and overcome, right? Hold on one moment.
Thank you.
Of course.
If I can just hop in real quick, it might be helpful for the individual person
Good to
who's
know.
viewing. If you go up to the top right, where it says
Good.
view, and you click on it, and then you hit speaker view, that might be more helpful and it might enlarge the screen for you on your side.
Let's see. Is that better for everybody?
I can do that.
It's still covering the wording.
I see the whole screen now. Thank you.
I think
Awesome.
what it is, the pictures of our participants are blocking your screen, at least on
Okay.
my computer.
Well, I'm sure the presentation will be available afterwards. So let's make sure that if there are any questions about content after I'm done, we can certainly go back and review them.
Yes, I think you're good to go with the way you have
Awesome.
it.
Great. So these are some areas that you want to be checking: your social media platforms, your corporate intranet websites. If you have something that connects solely to your employees, you want to ensure that they are also inclusive. Can we make sure that we're muted, please, if we're not currently sharing? And your applicant tracking systems. So, where to find talent? The Department of Vocational Rehabilitation will be sharing their business outreach unit and information on that later on. But that for hiring individuals with disabilities is the first place that I would go to check. They are an excellent resource, and you will learn more about them shortly. Partner with local supported employment agencies. As Tom mentioned, there are numerous agencies. The ARC of New Jersey is one of them that has supported employment agencies, individuals that are there to bridge the gap between what employers need for their workforce and the talent pool that exists. And consider posting your job openings on places like the Employee Assistance Resource Network, or EARN. There are a lot of job boards beyond Indeed and Monster that you can, or Career Builder, that you can source excellent talent that is more inclusive. So, how do you appeal to job seekers with disabilities? A couple of key tips. One, make sure you are upfront with your desire to create a more inclusive workplace on your postings. We welcome individuals with disabilities. We welcome individuals with various backgrounds. Those inclusive statements are a spotlight, not just for individuals with disabilities, but the cross section of different populations like veterans and the aging community. Consider individuals with employment gaps. A lot of the times, the kind of in the past death knell of a job application was having any type of employment gap. But we've found that not only do people change jobs more often, but oftentimes they have had more consistent career paths in the same field. So consider whether or not an employment gap is truly a disqualifier in the way that it might have been in the past, or whether or not the applicant's skills, strengths do still bring what you need. Include explicit statements about the value of inclusion and diversity. Promote options for flexible work. We all are doing that right now to some degree or another. But what we've found is during this difficult time that people's strengths have been able to shine even greater, and the need for inclusive, accessible work hours is not just something that will aid your inclusive work, but will aid all of your employees. So if you are going to offer flexible work schedules or remote travel or things like that, you want to make that clear. You really don't benefit by hiding it behind the end of your onboarding process. And as we talked about, review your job descriptions. And let's give an example of what that might look like. So an old job description might say, must be able to drive between multiple locations for client appointments. But we don't really need the person to be able to drive as much as we need them to be able to arrive at these destinations. Must be able to travel between multiple locations for client appointments would be a more accessible way to phrase that requirement. Must have strong written and oral communication skills. I wonder how many people in the webinar right now, if you were to look at your applications or your job descriptions, even for the job that you currently have, if you would see this statement. But what we really are talking about is communication. And last but not least, must be able to stand for long periods of time. What we're really asking is for the person's ability to remain at their workstation. So take a look at your job descriptions and ask yourself, are we communicating the way we accomplish these job tasks, or are we communicating the actual job task? And last but not least for this section, I want to talk about applications. Here are some major pain points that make online applications one of the greatest barriers to finding the talent that you need. One is complex navigation. How many clicks does it take to get from the beginning of the application to the end of the application? How many different sections do you have? How many different pop-ups do you have? So on and so forth. Inaccessible form fields. Screen readers and assistive technology devices rely on the form fields that you have to be easily populated and easily identifiable. If you have a box that says phone number, for instance, but you don't tell the person whether or not they need dashes in the phone number, that can result in a long trial and error process that might scare away talent. Keyboard inaccessible navigation is an offshoot of the first one. You should be able to tab from the start of your application to the end of the application without needing to use a mouse. Untagged images and graphics. If you do have images in your application or you have a graphic that represents your company, ensure that when you are programming it in, that it is clearly tagged group of smiling faces, for instance. That way a screen reader can still share the spirit of the message that you are trying to communicate. And this is the big one, lack of support for mobile devices. This is what we call responsive design, and it is a whole field, but a majority of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, particularly, studies have shown that they use mobile devices as their primary form of connecting to the internet. And so if your application cuts off part of the information, if it's not easily accessible when someone is using a mobile device, it's something that you really want to test as soon as you can. So these are some statements that you might want to broadcast on the top of your application. We encourage people with disabilities to apply. If you require a reasonable accommodation, please direct your inquiries to blank. And as a tool, I want to direct everybody to something called PeatWorks, PEATworks.org, where they have a free online accessibility check called Tech Check. It takes 10 minutes to complete, and it will give you a snapshot of how accessible your technology is. Not just on onboarding, but in various other areas. Asking questions like your software and mobile apps, your content and media, like your Word documents, etc. And now, a word from Inspiritech.
Thanks, Wes. You know, we're going to be hearing from Wes again in a few minutes, but I will tell you definitively there are a number of employers who do a great job recruiting and onboarding people with disabilities. We are fortunate to have the good folks at Inspiritech who have done a great job in this area. We're delighted to have Nicole Engel, the case manager at Inspiritech, to join us and share their effective strategies with us. Nicole, you're on.
Hello. So Inspiritech is located in Newark, Philadelphia, Wyomissing, and Fort Knox. And each location has its own protocol for recruiting individuals with disabilities. So for our office in Newark, we work with various agencies in order to recruit individuals with disabilities. We have a close relationship with DVRS and provide on-the-job training for about 8 weeks. The training is specialized and tailored to each individual, focusing on customer service skills as well as board-specific training for the call center. Case management meets with new hires within the first week to develop a relationship with this individual and to better understand their needs, both personally and within the workplace. And then from there, case management will perform comprehensive intake assessments, develop individualized work plans, provide information and referrals to other resource agencies, serve as advocates for services, monitor training and progress in achieving case service objectives, and also provide direct counseling. We also provide various types of accommodations for individuals, and these can include things such as extra breaks, time off for medical appointments, extra time to write notes without the risk of losing their position, so on and so forth. And what we do as case managers is, since we are understanding of what the individual's diagnosis is, we advocate on their behalf without disclosing anything. So if an individual were to come to us saying, I need, an extra 30 minutes during the day, is that possible? We would then go to their supervisor and just let them know, and we would work it into their schedule so that they would still get that extra time that they need. And what makes Inspiritech successful at employee retention is the access to case management and the entire culture supported by Inspiritech. The employee always comes first, and ensuring their stability of employment despite any obstacles the individual may face. So that being said, we also focus on personal issues as well, if they needed any assistance in their personal life, because at the end of the day, And Spirit Tech recognizes that we are whole beings. You know, we're not just workers, and any support that we can provide them, whether it's professionally or personally, we do. Our mission is to be an inspired social entrepreneurship that adds value to the lives of disabled and disadvantaged persons, the destinies of our corporate partners, and the careers of our employees. What we do now and how we do it will become a model for businesses and human service organizations alike. We know that our trainees and employees often face unique challenges related to their disabilities that may require specific workplace accommodations, but they also face the same challenges that any working person does: transportation, childcare, medical care, accessible and affordable housing, and clothing. Our case management staff is dedicated to providing the common and not so common resources necessary to achieve independence and excellence in the workplace. So we really try to meet each individual where they're at, and making sure that any needs that they have are met. If they need any, technology support, we've gone and gotten different headsets for individuals if they needed it. So there's really nothing that we will not work towards in accomplishing for the individual to be successful in the workplace. And it's really important to us. And that's really what our main focus is. And just being a part of it itself has just been a wonderful experience. But that's pretty much all that I have for right now. So I appreciate you guys, and I will mute myself now.
Well, thank you. You know, Spirit Tech does a great job as an employer, but certainly hiring people with disabilities, putting the extra effort, helping with the success. You're an inspiration to us. We appreciate it. And I think I can say you've learned that by putting, people with disabilities in job sites and working in Spirit Tech, it really helps the entire company. So Nicole, thank you for sharing with us, spending some time with us. We really appreciate all you do out there.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Now, thank you. Let's get back to Wes. Wes, we're ready for you to provide us some information on strategizing for maximum retention of employees with disabilities, and give us an overview of supported employment and ways businesses can work with job coaches on the job to help the success of people with disabilities on the job site. So Wes, take it from here. Wes, for some reason we can't hear you. There you
Can you hear
go.
me?
You're back now. Okay.
Awesome. One of the best tips when it comes to onboarding and retention is to look at your policies and update them after you've had successes. A lot of the times I've found in companies that have had successful employment situations, employment experiences with individuals with disabilities don't document what has worked and what has not worked. Anytime you make an accommodation, anytime you make your organization more accessible, you want to document that, because one of the main times individuals with disabilities find themselves having difficulties with employment is when management or leadership changes. And part of that is because there's no institutional memory. There's no record to look back on and say, we've tried this and it didn't work. One of the other big tips is to have multiple versions of your materials. If you have a interview process and standard interview questions that you ask, or a form that you fill out, do you have that in large print? Do you have that in Braille? Do you have that in a version that the hiring manager knows that they can read the questions out loud and collect the responses somehow? So you want to have multiple versions of your materials. And the last big tip is to always look at any inclusive activity as not just about the individual employee, but about improving and enhancing your workplace culture altogether. A really big example of that is this push to virtual and telework. That didn't just help individuals who needed the accommodation, but it helped everyone cope during this difficult time. And most accommodations work like that. They improve the workplace as a whole. So a key question to ask yourself is, where are your documents kept? What has worked? What has not worked? And if somebody new were to come on board as your HR person or as your shift supervisor, would they be able to access that information? keeping in mind, of course, that specific information about accommodations should be held in a classified location, only accessible to the people who need to know that information as per company policy and the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, EEOC. I definitely said that wrong, but I will correct it. So let's dive in deeper. When it comes to correcting your culture, you need to make sure that you're including disability as one of the positive selection factors, not just something that we tolerate, but something that we recognize enhances our work product. And this goes for all versions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Having a process that recognizes upfront that this is what we're looking for when it comes to retaining employees is going to be key. Ensure that hiring manager documents list why someone has been turned down. This is often something that is missed and can be the difference between recognizing a habit of uninclusive behaviors and letting that go for long periods of time and ending up hurting your bottom line. And provide opportunities for practice interviews as a way of identifying vacancies. So I'm going to skip ahead to some strategies for retention. Mind you that the PowerPoint will be available afterwards. So workplace flexibility, formalized evals, resource groups, and growth and mentoring. When it comes to workplace flexibility, I think all of us are pretty old hats at that. At this point, we are always trying to adapt our environments to have the most safe place that people can work. But workplace flexibility goes beyond telework. It also goes and talks about scheduling. When are people scheduled to work? When are our meetings held? If all of our meetings are held early in the morning and somebody needs an accommodation, are we flexible enough to adapt that? Our evaluation process. When we are evaluating individuals, are we bringing them in to talk about their performance, or are we just handing them a paper that says this is what we think of your job? Are we inviting time for them to process the feedback and respond to us, or are they asked to sign the evaluation right then and there? There is a difference between signing that you've received the document and signing that you agree with it. Are our evaluations always written, or do we have an accommodation to provide them verbally? Employee resource groups are one of the big things that a job coach will try to help you form, which is a group of individuals that support each other on the workplace. It's what we might call a natural support. And growth and mentoring. When you hire an individual, are you talking to them about where their next steps are with your organization? This is particularly key during the evaluation process, but it should not be restricted to that. We should be constantly talking about what the next step for that person is and where we see them going in the future, and offering them the tools and support needed to get them there. So, the Job Accommodation Network, or JAN, is an excellent resource for any organization looking to provide accommodations or work with a job coach, which we'll talk about in 1 second. This example screenshot that I have just lists multiple different needs that a person might have and provides tips and information about how you might work with providing accommodations. So, supported employment. What is it? You might hear terms like a job coach. You might hear terms like employment support professional or employment specialist. For the business side, I just want you to think about it as a disability employment consultant. That's what it essentially is. They are a consultant. They are there to work with the individual, and they're there to work with you to and address all of what we've talked about already. So whether it's recruiting, whether it's hiring and onboarding, or productivity and immersion, whether it's career advancement and retention, a job coach is a free, mind you, free to you, a resource that will come in and enhance your current practices. They are not there to replace your practices. You are still the employer. It's still your job to be the employer, to provide mentoring and resources, to provide training. But any of your existing processes, they're there to enhance it. They might go in and sit in on your interview to make the communication process smoother. They might provide you resources on what accommodations you might need to enhance your workplace, an ergonomic chair or a keyboard. They might work one-on-one with your individual to help better train them on the specific job tasks or perform an analysis of your tasks that you haven't done to see where maybe you could be a little bit more efficient if some things were moved here or there. They are a resource and a consultant, and there are many, many organizations that provide this service. I strongly recommend that you look into it and listen very closely to the business outreach unit, which will talk a little bit more about that as well. And now a word from Walmart.
Once again, Wes, thanks. So there are many companies in New Jersey that welcome people with disabilities and use the services of a supported employment provider. One outstanding company that has great success in doing that and very successfully uses employment specialists is Walmart. We are delighted to have Roxanne Bora join us to give us some insights on doing just that. Roxanne is a people lead for Walmart in Warren County. She has experience in hiring many people with disabilities. Roxanne, we're delighted to have you with us today.
Hi, everybody. So I am, as he said, the people lead in our store here in Warren County, New Jersey. And I am in HR. I help hire. And we work with our job coaches from before we actually hire these associates in. So we'll communicate with the job coaches about what our needs are as a business. And we will see if they have a match to somebody that's a possible hire for the position before we even interview the candidate. They never recommend anybody who they don't think will work out with us. Our job coaches attend orientation with their new hired associates. They'll assist in any of the computer work if it's needed to help their clients navigate how to work our computers, how to fill out the forms if it's needed. And they'll make sure that the company's expectations are clearly understood from day one, that our associates will be able to succeed in their roles. They'll come in to our stores to work with their associates and from day one, on their first few days, to make sure that their training processes are understood, they're being followed, and they'll go from our back room to the sales floor with our associates. Okay, job coaches don't perform the tasks for them, but make sure that their clients have the complete understanding and ability to do the assigned tasks that Walmart is asking them to do and that we've hired them for. Upon hire, each associate's job coach gives us a business card with contact information. So if an associate has an issue or we have a concern with one of the associates, if we need to, we can contact the job coach for assistance to correct the problem. They'll come in on the associate's shift to make sure that the issue is understood and able to be corrected. They'll come in to follow up with myself or one of their supervisors, and they even check in periodically to see if there are any issues that they're not aware of. They're the job coaches are very proactive in the success of their clients and to make sure that it fits the needs of our business.
What? Fell asleep. I know.
So we also have associates who struggle. So I have a few success stories. We have one associate with disabilities that's going to be celebrating her 10 years very shortly next month. And I also have an associate, she was struggling to complete the tasks that she had been assigned to. So her manager was really on the fence whether to keep her or let her go. We contacted the job coach. We had a meeting to discuss the problem. And the associate was really being given direction from multiple managers and was confused on what to put importance on. The job coach was able to develop a plan of action with the associate, who then kept a notebook to keep track of her daily tasks. So she's now next month celebrating her 5 years with the company. She's a valued employee. She went from part-time to full-time. And she's just one of our many success stories where a job coach has come in and worked with an associate to ensure the success of that individual and to ensure the success of our programs here at Walmart.
Roxanne, you really get it. You understand how it works. And you, with Walmart, really just use these programs, use the job coaches to make successful job matches and successful jobs for people with disabilities. We thank you so much for sharing your insights. We appreciate Walmart's support and all you do out there. Thanks, Roxanne.
Thank you.
So in order to make this work efficiently, we need good partners with state agencies in New Jersey. We value our partnerships with the Division of Developmental Disabilities and the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services. We are fortunate because the New Jersey Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services has many tools to help people with disabilities get jobs and work with businesses throughout the state to identify individuals for employment. We're very excited to have Mark Schweitzer, Cheryl Cassiano from the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Business Outreach Team that are joining us this afternoon. We're grateful for you joining us and for your many years of experience and dedication to making employment for people with disabilities a reality. Mark, I think you're leading us off. I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Tom. Pleasure to be here. I want to thank the NJBIA for having us. Good opportunity for us to showcase and explain what our services are all about. A little bit about the business outreach team. We were formed in April of 2017, so we're a little more than 4 years hitting the ground running. We were formed as a result of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is a federal legislation signed by President Obama. And we got the official nod in April of 2017 to start the unit. I just want to say that this is a great time for us to be highlighting and showcasing disability employment. Starting next Friday, October 1st, is Disability Employment Awareness Month. And that's the time when we showcase and celebrate those companies and individuals that were placed in employment. Okay, so a little bit about me. I have been in vocational rehabilitation for a little more than 17 years. I was a counselor for 14. And prior to that, I was in business for 25 years doing different types of things, you know, and I understand what challenges the businesses are having in terms of getting employment, you know, finding talent for their companies. And, you know, so I understand the struggles. About the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, we are part of the Department of Labor and Workforce Development within that department. And we help individuals with disabilities to prepare for, obtain, and maintain competitive integrated employment. Okay, our professional staff are master's level counselors. They're highly trained in vocational rehabilitation services. Some of the things that we offer for individuals that are hired is disability etiquette training for the companies. They may have difficulty adjusting to a newly hired person with a disability. So we come in and we have a presentation. We've all done it. I've done it. Cheryl's done it. And Jennifer, who couldn't be here today, has done it. So we're all very adept at disability etiquette training. You know, the important thing about disability etiquette is understanding that people with disabilities should be talked to individually, first person, that they are there and you want to interact with them. So how you talk is very, very important these days. We also provide information about work opportunity tax credits, which employers are eligible for. Once the person has been onboarded and is working. Okay, next slide, please. So I'd like to open with the statement. The workforce has undergone a change with the onset of COVID-19, and the DBRS Business Outreach Team has adjusted to accommodate with our business engagement practices. We do remain focused on engaging with businesses in person or virtually to discuss the many benefits of hiring individuals with disabilities. Employers are recruiting on many different platforms and all different sectors. We see it and we understand it. I look at jobs all the time and there's, oh my God, so many. So it's really important to see how the field is seeing the jobs. Okay, when we see jobs and we send them out to the offices, there are lists and lists and lists of particular jobs. But if employers are really interested in diving down deeper, okay, you can contact us. Okay, the business outreach team is there to help you. We are a concierge type service where we can talk to you, we can hook you up with the offices and things like that. So it's very important, the type of contacts that we do with businesses. Our response time, we try to get back to employers all the time very quickly. A lot of times employers will comment to me, Mark, I can't believe you called me back so quickly. Well, I believe in that. I believe that, if you get an email or a phone call, you respond to it and you try to help them out. You're in need. So that's, why we do things. Customer service is our thing. The next, there's three things. The next are targeted hiring events, information session, coordination, and large scale inclusive hiring job fairs. Okay, if you think about it, okay, I'm gonna give you an analogy. Okay, think of a large scale inclusive hiring event as a smorgasbord. Okay, so you have all these different companies coming together and they're giving information to lots of different people about their jobs. And so it touches a large population of individuals looking for different types of jobs. Okay, we did a number of those pre-pandemic. Okay, we're always looking to put on job fairs and inform the public of opportunities that are out there. Okay, the more successful ones, I have to say, are the targeted hiring events and the information sessions. Okay. Just the other day, I was at my computer and I got an email from an employer, a Bottle King, okay, and they were looking for somebody with autism to work in their store. So I talked to the employer and I told him what we could do, what we do, and how we can help him. I put the email out to three offices, I believe, that were local to Bergen County. And within a half hour, I had a response. Okay, we submitted the resume and the individual got hired within a matter of a couple of days. Okay, so that's, just one of the things. We actually can get to the office and we're a link between the business and the office. Information sessions are really good, okay, because that gives the opportunity for the employer to reach the counselors, the managers, and the supervisors of all the offices and discuss what their jobs are, what the benefits are, how much the pay is, if transportation is accessible. And a lot of the questions are answered by the employer during these sessions, and they're really helpful. We had numerous hires up in the north. For one example is we had Bowery Farming in Kearney. We had an information session with them, and within a matter of a week or so, we had a few people hired there. MC Hotel in Montclair, same thing. We invited different offices, and I began to get several resumes, sent them out, and got hires there. So that seems to be the better solution for us when we are able to handle it and disseminate the information on a smaller scale. Next on the list is accommodations. A lot of employers think that accommodations are very costly, okay, and that's false. Okay, most accommodations are rather cheap, okay, and they're easy fixes. Okay, when I was a counselor, and I was having an issue, I called for an evaluation to determine whether an accommodation was needed. We got the information in, and the person was able to do the job. So those types of things are some of the things that we do. Supported employment services. As Wesley mentioned before, we have vendors that we work with that are support employment vendors, and this helps the individual to adjust to the job. It's stressful and sometimes unnerving to start a new job and not know what to do. And so the support employment, the job coach comes in, and they will assist the individual to learn their job, to help them to adjust and feel more comfortable and be more productive. And that's what employers are hoping for. We have referrals to the state and local partners. We are all part of the workforce system. So we deal with workforce development boards. I personally am on disability issues committees in several of them. And we, have to answer and provide, programs and things like that. In October is Disability Employment Awareness Month that I mentioned before, and a lot of the different counties are putting on different DEAM events. Okay, and one of the last things that I'd like to tell you about is transportation. Transportation in New Jersey can be very challenging. Okay, it's not so bad in the inner cities, but as you get out to the suburbs and out into the rural areas, it could be a little challenging. A lot of our clients don't drive. So, they are reliant upon family members or friends to get them to work. So it may be helpful when you're putting in your ads in terms of job descriptions to mention something about transportation accessibility to public transportation. I think that's a good tip. So hopefully with these few takeaways, we can assist businesses to get talent that they need. They can contact myself, Cheryl, and Jennifer Venziani. I believe our information is in the bios and everything. So I really thank you for allowing us to showcase our services.
Thanks, Mark. Cheryl, you're up.
Hi. Yes, could we go to the next slide, please? And can you see me? Because I don't see me, so I hope you can see me. Okay, so one of the programs incentives that we have for employers to assist with onboarding qualified individuals with disabilities is our very own on-the-job training initiative. So that is a DVR program. And in order for an employer to utilize this program, the person they're onboarding must open a case. They must be a consumer registered with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. And once that happens, if the person is going to be hired, the employer can work with the counselor, the DVR counselor, to set up an on-the-job training contract. And if you see on the slide, it can be up to 50% of the person's gross wages. And it's negotiated what the term of the training period is. So for example, if someone's normal training period is 3 weeks, you can negotiate a little bit more than that if there's some accommodations, or perhaps there's a translation, sign language interpreting happening on the floor, or there's a job coach. You might negotiate for more than the typical training, but not exorbitantly more. So but that's negotiated between the employer, the consumer, and the counselor, how long the training period is going to be. And then the expectation on the part of DVR is that if the person works out afterwards, they would be kept on as a full-time employee, and then the salary would be, the employer's responsibility. So that's a great program. And if anyone's interested, you can contact Mark or I or your local DVR rep to learn more about that. And just please note, as it says on the bottom, you have to have this contract in place before the person starts working at the company. So we can't do all this, we can't go back, look back, backdate. It all has to be set up prior to the person starting. So that's pretty much the OJT program. And with my remaining few moments, I have something else I want to talk about. So let me please go to the next slide. Okay, so some of the people who are on here, employers, may be contractors or subcontractors with the federal government. And I wanted to share some resources for you. So OFCCP is there to protect workers, promote diversity, enforce the law. And so anyone who does business with the federal government has the legal requirement towards affirmative action and to not discriminate on the basis of select groups. Also, it protects people who share information about their salary so that they don't get discriminated against. And in order to help employers understand how to comply with OFCCP, they formed these groups back in the 80s called industry liaison groups. Next slide, please. So, before I go to the industry liaison groups, here's our local OFCCP offices that would be pertinent to New Jersey employers. For most of New Jersey, you have the district office out of Mountainside. For the Philadelphia district office, and actually I'm unclear on whether or not everyone in New Jersey has to report to the Jersey office. I work closely with the people out of Philly, so I put them in there for South Jersey, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if there's an actual specification. If anybody else on here knows that answer, you can jump in the chat box and clarify that. I work with Ed Rogers, and if you can go to the next slide, I can talk about where we work together. So the Philadelphia Industry Liaison Group is one of these liaison groups that was started way back when as a way for employers, industry to communicate with OFCCP to assist them with complying. The Philadelphia Liberty ILG covers South Jersey, the Philadelphia greater area, and Delaware. There's also one in North Jersey, and I'm going to put their contact information in the chat box. So the Philadelphia Industry Liaison Group, we meet quarterly. Our next meeting is November 18th. And prior to the pandemic, we were meeting in person, and we had some amazing speakers. I just want to mention some of the people that have appeared over the course of just the last 2 years. In 2019, we had Ed Rogers, who was the regional director of OFCCP in Philly. Also Marlene Williams from that office. Mary Tiernan from EEOC has done presentations. Michelle Hodge, who is the Mid-Atlantic Regional Director of OFCCP. And one of my favorite speakers is a gentleman named Matthew Camaradella, who's from Jackson Lewis, PC, and he would come in and talk about the political landscape, what to expect from OFCCP in different years, who's in the White House now, and how that informs and affects what's happening with federal contractors. Always found his information very interesting. In 2018, we had Jim Foti, who was the regional director of the Office of Apprenticeship for the U.S. Department of Labor. He was a speaker. Also, Dana Hutter, the deputy district director of EEOC in the Philadelphia area. So just from that little list of names, I can assure you this is a wonderful group, and we have a lot of great stuff going on. So it's free. All of these are free to join. And if you are a federal contractor or subcontractor, I highly encourage you to go on their websites. I'm putting it in the chat box again, the National and the South Jersey. And then I will also include, there is one for North and Central Jersey. I was able to get a hold of them, and I got some information this morning. They also were meeting live before the pandemic, but or have been doing virtual activities. So please, if you are a contractor, access this material. It's great stuff, and we have a lot of great speakers. Again, I'm going to put some more things in the chat box, but that's pretty much all my comments. Thank you, Tom.
Cheryl, thank you. So businesses in New Jersey, you have a lot of resources if you're looking to hire people with disabilities. And I can assure you, connecting with the new DVRS Business Outreach team is a great way to go. They can connect you to employees, to programs. You guys bring a lot to the table. Thank you very much. Finally, it's important to note that employment opportunities are critical for people with disabilities. But we need businesses to help out in other areas also, including internships for people with disabilities. So here to discuss that with us today is Matthew Fernandez, the State Director for the Best Buddies International. Now, I can tell you Best Buddies does incredible work in our state, including running a very successful internship program for people with disabilities. So Matthew, you're on, you can share your information.
Great. Thank you very much. Like you said, my name is Matthew Fernandez. I'm the State Director for Best Buddies International. We are a nonprofit organization going on 31 plus years of working with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We've heard a lot of amazing opportunities for employment and ways to engage our amazing individuals and fellow New Jerseyans here. But we found that since 1996 with Best Buddies, we were doing supportive employment. And we found that there were opportunities for individuals that they lacked some of the experiences or qualifications. At the same time, we found some employers who really wanted to do, to kind of jump with both feet in, but they've never worked with an individual with intellectual developmental disability. So we started working on a couple of different ideas and projects, and the state of New Jersey was able to pilot it for the entire Best Buddies organization 3 years ago, thanks in large part to a Department of Labor workforce development grant 3 years ago over the summer to host summer internships. We worked with individuals from all across the state to provide the pre-employment training to them, as well as worked with employer partners to provide training for them. And when you stop and ask, oh, what type of training does an employer need? We're just hiring someone and having them get to work. But we found that a lot of amazing employers needed to work a little bit on how they can support their fellow employees and their supervisors and their managers in very new types of managing and new types of engaging the individuals with disabilities. We had to create strategies to create a more inclusive climate for the individuals there. So before any of our interns step foot on one of their sites, we work through different employers and supervisors to do job development for them. So whether it be how to do a review, how to do an interview with an individual, how to provide modified coaching. Some ways that were tried and true maybe in the past would not be as conducive for some of our interns who were experiencing the very first job opportunity. So we started to see a lot of our placements, when we started doing these internship placements for 4, 5, 6 weeks, by the time the internship wrapped up, the experiences were very beneficial for both parties. Employers were hiring individuals right off the bat from the internship program, as well as interns were now realizing, I really don't want to do that career, which is true for any internship. Even I had an internship in college that told me I had no desire to work in that field. So it kind of gives those experiences before we lock individuals into careers and job choices and say, this is the only avenue for you. We find it's better to give them those experiences and those opportunities. After that first year of doing the program, we were very lucky enough to then get another opportunity with the NJCDD to do further development of the internships program. And then we started seeing opportunities with larger companies. A great example, we've had interns with Johnson & Johnson and Merck and some very large Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, from everywhere from facilities management to lab assistants and working in various ways for individuals. So really drilling down with our participants that we get from some amazing New Jersey programs. And I saw Erin here from Bergen County College. We have some fantastic interns that come out of her Turning Point program that get involved with our initiatives here. So we have individuals in high school who are looking for their very first experiences, and we have individuals graduating college looking for work experiences. And I know this crowd is definitely more of the employer partner side of things. And I will say, I use a saying, and I'm not the one who said it first, but if you met an individual with autism, you've met one individual with autism. And I say the same for employer partners. If you met one company that is, look, saw a little LN alumni thing there. Sorry. If you look at employer partners, they might be in various steps of their D&I journey. Some might have a whole employee resource group about inclusive hiring, and some might be really trying to get started. And again, I like a lot of good sayings. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next time? Today. So maybe your company doesn't have a very inclusive hiring practice, or it doesn't have a lot of experience, and you don't know where to start. Start with internships. They offer, a lot of organizations do it, but there's opportunities for paid internships and unpaid internships, college credit or no college credit. So there's a wide gambit of opportunities there for individuals. And I definitely think that if you're looking to take those steps, you're looking to be more inclusive, these internships will give both you, your employees, the supervisors working in those different fields, as well as amazing young men and young women with IDD looking for work experiences. So that sums up in a big part the internship program. There's a lot of amazing resources out there. I know we work with the Department of Labor as well as one of the pre-ETS vendors, and there's a lot of opportunities with the internships through that in various counties. And also there's plenty of companies we've worked with, like example of Sodexo, that works on the internship program. We work in various roles across the state and their entities. So that is in conclusion of the internship program, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today.
Matthew, thank you for sharing that great insight, right? We're always focused on the jobs, and we need those jobs. But there are other opportunities that employers can provide, and you did a great job showing us how important internships are for people with disabilities. Thanks for your great work, Matt. We appreciate it. All right. So we had a great panel of speakers, and we thank them for joining us this afternoon. We have a few minutes for some questions, though. So if anybody out there has a question, you can raise your hand, you can jump right in. But we have our panel of experts still with us. Be happy to entertain a question if you have one. I think I'm going to jump in because we had a couple of questions submitted here. So panel, this one's for you now. All right, so we are thrilled that we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, and for over 30 years, people with physical disabilities, other disabilities have made great strides because of the ADA. But as we enter the 21st century and it continues to unfold, more consideration will have to be given to making accommodations for those with non-visible or non-physical disabilities, Asperger's syndrome, autism. Any thoughts, panel members, on that, how we can make our job sites more inclusive for those individuals?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think one of the key things when talking about non-apparent disabilities or barriers is that addressing the overall culture of our workplaces is going to be the most important thing. When, for instance, if we're talking about Asperger's or autism, we could focus on whether or not we can identify the disability, or we could focus on whether or not our task structures are somewhat consistent. If we have things written down in multiple places, if we have different reinforcement methods, natural supports and reminders of when tasks need to be done programmed into our workplaces, and addressing that culture will also benefit individuals with non-apparent disabilities.
Thanks, Wes. Anyone else want to jump in? All right. Any other questions for us out there?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
I'd like to know, is there any way that I can access a list or some kind of information on why employers should go out of their way to hire disabled people? The benefits to the employer by doing this?
Great question, Jane. So part of this webinar, we have a list of resources available for everyone on this. And I believe there's some pieces in those resources that will address your question directly, Jane. So thank you. Look at those resources. I think we've got it there for you. If not, my email is there. You can email me and I will get you those resources.
I'm, just to let you know, I'm on the Abilities Committee, used to be the Disabilities Committee for the Bergen County Workforce Development Board.
Beautiful.
And
Well, thank you.
work with small business owners. And we're trying to turn on companies to consider hiring people with disabilities, and we could use some help from you.
There you go. You're going to have access to a lot of help, Jane. You look at that list of resources, there's a whole slew of folks that'll be able to jump in and help you out with that. We had another question. How can we best train coworkers to be sensitive to our individual needs of people with disabilities? Panel members, anyone want to jump in on that one?
I take that one.
Please do.
Perfect. What some of the trainings that a lot of organizations, but Best Buddies does when we go into a new company, we do literally sensitivity training, and it goes through. It's a very safe space conversation about what can you say, what can you not say with an individual with disability, and kind of take it. Everyone's in a different part of the journey, so let's work together to be more sensitive for our new employees. Then again, every individual, any new hire is completely different than the last new hire type of thing. So it's always something that you have to go with the flow, work with the job coaches or the job consultants, and kind of be cognizant of that. But that's part of a lot of the onboarded trainings, is to make sure everyone's ready to be sensitive and respectful to everyone in their company.
Thank you, Matthew. This is Laura. I'm the one who posed the question. It's actually from personal experiences. My son works for Sodexo, and I feel like, you know, it's a wonderfully inclusive place, but he has one coworker who's short with him, and he'll come home and tell me that, you know, this coworker, you know, he kind of yelled at me today. He's been impatient with me, and yeah, I feel like, yeah, he's on the autism spectrum, relatively high functioning, but has a hard time like navigating that situation. I'm just wondering, he has a great involved job coach and a very supportive chef in the kitchen. He's at the pot sink and he delivers meals. I'm wondering, like, do you think I should advise him? I know this is a very particular situation, but I'm wondering if, you know, I don't want to be the mama bear and jump in, of course. I want him to handle it the best way possible. Do you think that it's really his role to say something directly to his coworker, or he should really go through the chef and the job coach at this point?
I will never say that someone should not self-advocate for themselves, but I would also empower them to make great use of their job coach and share those feelings with them. Or use the resources out there. And if it's something that you think there's other ways to do it, and there's nothing wrong with being a proud mama bear, but I would say definitely use the resources you have there. Or yeah, and I know it's very specific, so if you ever would like to talk more offline, I'm glad to connect with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Matt. A lot of resources are available. You've got it in your email. You have all of the speakers' email addresses. If there's any really specific questions you want to ask after this webinar, by all means, reach out. We're sort of coming to the end of our line here, but we have time for another question or two. Anyone else have a question for our great panel of experts? Well, let me throw out one last softball to the gang here. So a consensus opinion about procuring and paid employment as the single most critical, viable piece of an independent living situation. I mean, basically that's why we do what we do. We understand how critical paid employment is to an individual. Anyone want to weigh in as we wrap this up?
How many experiences in our lives, how many relationships, how many successes and character building moments happen in a unique setting on the workplace? There are relationships that I've made on the job that would not have been made in any other place. And I think that sometimes we reduce employment just to the monetary part of it. But the important part of that monetary compensation is that someone is valuing your time and your skill set and your abilities and your contribution. And I think if we are okay with saying your time is valuable, just not valuable enough to pay for, we undermine our work for making a more integrated, inclusive environment. So yeah, I think paid employment is the most important part.
Thanks, Wes. Great way to wrap it up. I want to thank all of our panel members. You guys did an awesome job. Our interpreters, Danielle, all your hard work. Chrissy, I'll throw it back to you to say, to wrap things up. But Chrissy, we're so grateful for all your work for making these webinars happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you, Danielle, and to the team. And thank you for all who participated. Your engagement here today really means a lot to us. As Tom mentioned, we have an abundance of resources at the association, at various different disability advocates who are on the line that joined us today, as well as the state of New Jersey. A shout out to all the business community representatives who are on as well. This webinar will be shared and available for those who are unable to join or want to watch again. Danielle will be sending it out, and we encourage you to forward it along and use as a resource. If you're interested in joining our coalition of folks, many of which I read off at the beginning of the webinar, please feel free to email me directly. We do meet on a frequent basis. And our hope is to continue to have this very critical conversation moving forward, especially as we enter into Disability Awareness Month and such. And so again, this is the start of a very important conversation. And if you have any thoughts, considerations, feedback, please shoot me an email. And again, to our partners, thank you once again for your continued collaboration. It really is very important work. And so with that, I will say happy Friday. Until we meet again. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.